Well, Robert Kelly is a professor of political science at Pusan National University.
Here in South Korea, before public opinion, the media, and elites and so on, the U.S. relationship is the most important one for South Korea in its diplomatic relations. And so getting along with the American president, no matter who he might be, in this case, right, is always important. And so, yeah, I think President Lee needs to do a good job, or at least passable before the Korean media. Sure.
Let's talk a little bit more about the tariffs. Of course, there's that loose agreement that the U.S. will charge only 15% import tariffs in exchange for Seoul investing, I think, about $350 billion in America. Do you expect any details on this to emerge from this meeting? And if so, what might that be?
Yeah, that's actually really tricky, because in Trump's relationships with other U.S. allies who've gotten similar deals like this, and nobody really knows what those mean. Right? I mean, this is one of the big problems of the Trump administration. It's all sort of very personalistic. It's all sort of like, how does Trump feel about a particular interlocutor? Does he like somebody? Does he get along with them? You know, nothing is written down. Nothing goes before the legislatures, right? I mean, in the Korean case, there is a treaty that the U.S. and South Korea both signed and ratified in 2018, and a version before that in 2011. I mean, that's black letter law, as the lawyers would say, and Trump has just thrown that out. It's really risky to trust Donald Trump. Right? And so this is why, for example, the European Union has really sort of hesitated a lot on this sort of strange commitment that, you know, its companies would fork over hundreds of $billions of investments. I'm not sure the South Korean government could actually coerce South Korean companies to do that. I mean, I'm not sure even if that's legal. It's probably not legal in the European Union. And so I would imagine that's actually one of the things that the lead people are trying to sort of get down on paper. Like, what exactly do you want, and can you put it over your signature so that you can't change the terms in a year or two or four? Because, again, that's what Trump did with the current U.S.-Korea trade treaty.
What leverage does South Korea have? I'm thinking particularly of their sale of semiconductors and how important that is to America.
Generally speaking, South Korea is in a tough spot if the Americans really want to play hardball, because if the United States were to leave South Korea's defense costs would double or triple. The American defense guarantee really helps to keep South Korea's defense budget, much, much lower than it otherwise might be. South Korea would probably have to build nuclear weapons if the U.S. were to leave. There would also be massive foreign capital flight out of South Korea if the U.S. were to leave. And that's the kind of thing that Trump loves to wave that kind of stick, right? I mean, we've seen that in his dealings with other U.S. allies. Probably the best points of leverage that the South Koreans have, I would actually argue, is shipbuilding. This is something that the U.S. Navy has really begun to emphasize, right? If the U.S. and China are going to compete, China's got the potential to build an enormous number of ships per year. The United States does not. And so this has actually kind of been growing on the U.S. agenda vis-a-vis China in the last couple of years, right? Where are we going to get the shipbuilding capacity to compete, to just build more destroyers and missile cruisers and things like that? And South Korea actually can do that, and that might be a way for them to at least rope in the Defense Department to push back on Trump's erraticness.
What do you make, if anything, of the timing of this visit? Because, of course, over the weekend, President Lee was in Japan. Is that significant for you?
It is significant that he went to Japan first, and I think, again, that reflects on Donald Trump. I mean, Trump is a really erratic partner, right? It's just not really clear if U.S. partners can rely on U.S. extended deterrence anymore, right? And so if you're Korea and Japan and the Americans are suddenly looking shaky, right, then it's wise to talk to one another. And to a certain extent, because the U.S. was around so heavily in the past, the Japanese-Korean relationship was probably more tense than it otherwise would have been. But without the Americans, you know, that kind of forces the two of them to get along better.